As Lynn mentioned, I'm currently supervisor of the recycling group at Connecticut DEP, and I'm pleased to be here today because way back in a former life at DEP, I was on a team with Lynn Stoddard, the original climate change team, and we, along with a few others, crafted the state's first climate change action plan. And there was a little bit of a lull in the action, and I'm pleased to see that at this point there's kind of like a second wave of action forming. We've got a bunch of really good people working on it now, and kind of tangentially, I'm really looking forward to see how this current push goes in moving Connecticut toward its greenhouse gas reduction goals. As many of you know, recycling is a top recommended action for reducing greenhouse gases in the state. As another benefit, increased recycling also leads to economic benefits for towns that increase the recycling in the form of reduced tipping fees for waste disposal and also potentially materials management related jobs in town. Last year, we had some Public Act 1494 was passed and included a statutory goal of a 60% waste diversion by the year 2024. We're currently at 25 to 30%, so we have a long way to go. In 2009, compostable materials comprised nearly 30% by weight of what was thrown out by typical households in Connecticut. Nearly 13% of that total weight was food scrap that was thrown out, and that could be from residences, also grocery stores where they have a lot of vegetables that get thrown out. As we move toward our new 60% diversion goal, diverting and recycling organics is one of our low-hanging fruits. It's going to get us a long way toward that goal, and it's a very important policy for us. Connecticut a few years ago adopted the commercial organics recycling law. If you're a large generator falling into certain categories like grocery stores and you generate more than 104 tons per year or about 2 tons per week of organic material, you have to separate and recycle your organic material. It doesn't say you have to go to the, and it also applies if there's a recycling facility within 20 miles of you. It doesn't say you have to go to the closest one, but you have to recycle it somewhere. Towns are not covered by that commercial organics recycling law, but the towns can play a big role in maximizing our statewide organics diversion. Today, we have 2 town or regional representatives here today to tell us about organics programs that they've initiated. And they're 2 people I've worked very closely with, so I'm pleased to be here today to introduce them. Catherine Diviney and I first met in the fall of 2000, I believe. We were in a grad class together. And then just so happened, many years later, we reunited on the West Hartford Clean Energy Task Force. We're both co-chairs at this point. So Catherine and I have been working together on a town energy plan. And as a task force, we've also kind of started branching out, and we're working on developing a town comprehensive recycling plan as well. Catherine is the energy specialist for the town, and since she's come on board, she's really helped move what we had on paper in our plan into reality. So it's really been great having her at the town level, and it's been a pleasure working with her. Jen Iannucci I met about maybe 6 years ago when I first moved down working on recycling issues, and Jen's great. She's the director of the Housatonic Resource Recovery Authority. As a regional group, they've done a lot to really increase recycling across the board. I know a lot of towns struggle with education, trying to get their town citizens up to speed on what they should or should not be recycling. Jen and her group has put together this really great book. I think there's a few of them still out in the back, Wipeout Waste Guidebook. It's probably the best one I've seen in the state as far as providing guidance to town residents on how to recycle properly. So I would advise getting one of those. It's also available online, I believe, if you don't get one here today. And with that, I will turn it over to Catherine.
Good morning. So my name is Catherine Diviney. As Chris pointed out, I'm the energy specialist for the town of West Hartford. I work part-time there, and I came there about 4 or 5 years ago from Portland, Oregon, where they do curbside organics recycling. So recycling is not something I do every day, so I'm learning it as we go. And West Hartford Public Schools last year and this year, we've just started dabbling in food waste recycling and a composting pilot. So the big picture for our program in West Hartford Public Schools is it is a pilot. Like I said, we're dabbling in this. We're not experts. We're trying some stuff out. We're seeing how it goes. We're rethinking. We're rejiggering the program. We've learned a lot along the way. The impetus for this pilot was that people were asking for it. There's a lot of interest in the town of West Hartford. Some elementary schools, our high school environmental clubs in particular, were really jazzed about it. We have some nonprofit organizations working in our schools that are focused on recycling and local sustainable food and farmers markets in schools. And our clean energy task force, as Chris mentioned, was interested in it. We knew that large-scale on-site composting was not going to work in the town of West Hartford. We're kind of an urban community, and to have all that on-site, first of all, we thought the volume would be too great, and there might be pest issues, and some of our residents were going to complain. So we knew from the start we were always looking at transporting our organic waste off-site. We actually were approached by Covanta Energy, who we had a waste partnership with, about starting up a pilot program as a precursor to feeding those biodigestion facilities that are still, I think, planning to go into Southington, Connecticut. And we did, it was always in the back of our minds that there might be a better way to deal with our food waste, both environmentally and economically. That it might pay for itself because food is very heavy, so if we could divert that out of our waste stream. And then all of the departments, and this takes a lot of work, actually, we've come to realize within a town, because there are various departments that are involved in this. Our Department of Public Works is responsible for the haulage and taking everything away. But they don't like to play inside the building. That's where, facilities and custodial is in charge. You also have the school side of things, so the staff and the students. And nutrition services as well is involved in food waste recycling. So we had to get all these players talking and working together. So that's a lot of moving parts. But our Public Works Director is very supportive. He is very focused on the 2024 goal. West Hartford's current recycling rate is 27, so we need to do some work to get it up to the 60%. But our Director of Public Works in the town of West Hartford has always had and still has in the back of his mind that vision of having a third barrel at the curb. So my presentation is a nice follow-on to what Stanford was talking about. Our ultimate vision for West Hartford, and I'll get into what we are doing. Our ultimate vision was to have kind of the same system, look, and feel throughout the school system as we started thinking about what we should be doing in the schools. People would learn it young as they came into kindergarten, and then they carry that practice with them all the way through the school system. We tried to think about a little bit beforehand, standardizing some of the colors we used, the symbols. I had conversations with Deep. Connecticut doesn't have any really standard symbols or colors, so we borrowed them from Seattle. We also stole a customized recycling station. We took a stainless steel food service table and customized it with holes and cutouts. We borrowed that idea from Minnesota. Who knew, but the state of Minnesota is doing a lot of good things in recycling. The other thing we knew was this is a pilot, but eventually if this is ever going to work large scale, our Director of Public Works is very clear it has to be cost effective. So our goal was hoping that we could divert enough heavy waste out of the garbage stream that it would pay for itself. When you're talking about garbage, there are several payments. There's your tipping fee that you pay per tonnage, but there's also a transportation fee to run that truck round. So when you talk about, and I know Jen's going to have some comments on this too, but the way West Hartford approaches this, we have garbage, which has a tipping fee and a transportation fee. You have recycling, which may not have a tipping fee, or you may get paid a little, but it still has a transportation fee. And then if you add organics or food waste, you might be adding a third transportation loop as well. So you really have to watch, you're hauling away from the sites as well as what you're paying or receiving to get rid of that waste as well. And then we also decided that, eventually our ultimate vision was maybe if we saved enough out of this, we could funnel some of that money back into the system, and the nice thing is, we're kind of planting seeds and just getting departments to talk. Again, this is like pilot phase. We're just brainstorming, but we did have several conversations, and everyone is sort of in agreement that if you save enough, eventually you could plow that back in, across department lines. Again, this is something that doesn't happen within towns, but Department of Public Works might give up that savings to nutrition services, which is going from town to Board of Ed as well, to plow it back into the system to buy compostable serverware and utensils, which then could go into the compost bin and save again on the garbage, transportation, and tipping fees. So we got these pieces in motion. Some stuff is happening, but this is all the ultimate vision. And then again, part of the ultimate vision is the education. We have 16 schools in West Hartford. That's 9,500 plus students, plus staff. So a lot of people that could be reached through this program, demonstrating that the food waste can be a full circle process. And then we are also looking at sort of changing the behavior. We would like not even to have food waste. So you're sort of taking the step prior to that and saying, well, why don't you eat all your lunch, or don't bring as much, and why don't you pack it differently? So instead of packing it in a plastic wrap, which has to go in the garbage, why don't you pack it in a reusable container that can come back? So that's kind of another behavior piece that can be highlighted through food waste recycling, and also the additional benefit of doing the separation might also increase your regular recycling as well. I'm probably taking up too much time, so we'll run through this quickly. Last year, we kind of knew we were shooting ourselves in the foot starting with high schools. We knew this going in, but the high school environmental clubs were really jazzed and really asking for a composting program. So we started in the high schools. We have 2 high schools in West Hartford. We did organics recycling in the kitchens. Our high schools do a lot of prep work and send food out to the other places. So they had little bins on their countertops and big green barrels in the kitchens. And that's how we did it and signage on the walls telling them what could go in and what could not. The kitchens were amazing. In the cafeterias, we rolled out a custom recycling station, which looked like this. Again, I mentioned we borrowed that design from Minnesota. We had signage. We worked with the environmental clubs on outreach. They did various things. They have a link crew, which trains incoming freshmen. They did some PowerPoint presentations. They did videos. They did advisory presentations. They had a big event on Do Something Day. And then our custodial staff we were trying to also streamline this to make it as easy as possible for custodians. So the food waste would go into a same clear plastic bag. The custodians would just take the bag and put it in a separate container out back. Our food waste was collected twice a week by a local food scrap service, local to West Hartford, called Blue Earth Composting. The Southington facilities are not built yet, and so the Covanta partnership kind of fell apart, but we used Blue Earth Composting, a local West Hartford company who is transporting it up to Ellington, Connecticut, which is the closest traditional composting facility for us. And then some of our school gardens were getting compost back to demonstrate that food circle. So here are just some pictures of what was happening in the kitchens. The kitchens, as I mentioned, were great. We got a ton of really heavy, very uncontaminated, clean volume out of this program. It was great. Those are some of the countertop bins and some of the signs we used. The cafeterias were not so great. So that's our station. We started out, as I said, with some initial signage from Seattle. We decided the signage didn't work. We kind of redid the signage with some of the actual items. You can see some of the students there. So what we learned, again, difficult to implement, a lot of moving parts. We learned that high schoolers don't listen. Again, we knew this going in, but this, some kids are great, they'll do it. Other kids, I mean, literally people will walk up to you like you're standing behind it and they'll like throw it in the wrong bin just to spite you, because they're trying to be rebellious. We tried to talk to the principals, could this be more of a top-down? Are you kidding me? They don't listen to me, They'll only listen to their counterparts, So it's a different message to high schoolers, and we kind of knew that going in, but this really proved it out. And another part of this exercise, again, it's a pilot. So we wanted schools to really understand what it takes and whether they could do it themselves, because we didn't have the central resources to do this. So we found signage with the actual items works better. A customized station like we had did work better. We set up in the same cafeteria kind of a makeshift station, which didn't have the stainless steel counter, and the quality wasn't as good there. Full-time monitoring, having someone stand by the table really worked better, but again, we don't have the resources to do that. And then we found also that the kitchens were very, very successful in terms of quality and volume. So this year we kind of rejiggered the program a little bit. We sat down with the high schoolers, we debriefed. They asked for the programs, so we wanted to sort of get their feedback on what worked, what didn't. Could we continue it there? So we rejiggered the program. This year what we're doing is 7 kitchens. Because the kitchens were so great, we're bringing on our elementary school kitchens, our middle school kitchens, which are also prep kitchens, and then 2 elementary kitchens where we're doing another pilot program. The high schools, we are making now voluntary. We took the stations out. We're gonna have a separate, just standalone green barrel with a food waste sign. And then, sorry, Lynn. And then we're rolling it out in 2 elementary schools where it'll be the systematic approach, where the staff will be involved, the principal isn't involved, and already we see it making a difference. They phased it in, it's part of their standard routine, so it's really making a difference. And these are some of the things we'll be looking for this year, in terms of quality, volume, what signage works. And then again, as we go through it again this year, we're gonna try and delve into some of those economic questions.
So, I'm Jenna Iannucci, I'm from the HRA, and yes, I'm here to talk about the Bridgewater pilot program for organics. I was inspired by the DEP's goal of 60% by 2024. I'm hoping that you also will be inspired by some of what we've said today. So, taking a look at the low-lying fruit of organics at 27% of our waste stream, and also some of these other basic facts that more food reaches landfills and incinerators than any other material in our waste stream. That's enormous, and it's something that we can really grasp because it's something that every single one of us in this room touches every day. So we can make a difference, everyone. So knowing that and knowing that organic material is heavy and it's wet. Heavy is cost. It doesn't matter if you're a municipality that has a municipal collection through your tax base, or even if you're a municipality that has 100% subscription-based hauling. There's a huge cost to hauling that organic waste to whether it's a waste-to-energy plant or a landfill. And then the second part of that is it's wet. Wet doesn't burn. Wet is very difficult to have high BTU value in a waste-to-energy plant. So why are we burning our organics? Why are we sending it to landfills? Wet makes methane. Wet is the part that helps that be created within the landfill. And according to US EPA, and they have identified that landfills are the single largest source of methane, and it is a potent greenhouse gas, and it's 23 times heavier. It can trap the heat in our atmosphere greater than even carbon dioxide. So knowing those important facts, and I didn't continue with my slideshow, sorry. That inspired me for this practice of source separation of organics. It hadn't been done really in Connecticut. And so I started looking around, and you look and you say, wow, there's over 3,000 communities nationwide that are doing this. It's 2.4 million households. Why can't we? It's important to note that, though in 2013, EPA reported that 37 million tons were generated of food waste, but only 5% was diverted. That's very disappointing. So we have challenges in Connecticut. The challenge is 169 municipalities with different waste plans, few organic processors that are permitted. They are growing. Rural communities, the distance from a processor, private subscription hauling, and the cost per ton. They create challenges. But to me, it's not a complete obstacle. So I built a program. I built a program with the support of my local chief elected officials. And I did a lot of research. What did other programs look like? What were other communities doing nationwide? What were those 3,000 communities doing that made it good and bad? What were the pros and cons? How could I learn from them without reinventing the wheel? I obtained a hauler who was willing to work with me, the processor within our community. We agreed on the materials that would be collected and that was acceptable. Not all processors will take the same material list, so that's important to know. You have to plan how you're going to supply and fund the program. We're very lucky that DEP offers the incentive grants right now, and I recommend that you take advantage of that if you're interested in an organics program. And getting the word out before it starts, and you'll hear me say that over and over again. Education is absolutely necessary and key. So this is what the kit looked like. We provided to our residents in this pilot a indoor kitchen counter collection bin, 1 gallon, a curbside container, it was about 7 gallons, it's the larger container there, compostable bags, and a lot of educational material. Getting the word out. We used every possible way to reach people, whether it was social media, the newspaper, town newsletter, whatever we could use to get the word out face-to-face or on print. We took advantage of that. If residents don't know why they should be saving and the organic waste, they're far less likely to do it, and education is key. So, understanding the public. Every community has different demographics. You have different challenges. You may have a lot of single-family homes. You may have multifamily homes. Distance might be an issue. You have to understand what your community needs and what their wants are before you can start a program. And so we use SurveyMonkey and push the survey through our social media, town newsletters, and through the schools to get our community to take the survey to find out, are they recycling at home? Why or why not? Do they compost now in their backyard? Why or why not? What are their fears? So we could address those within our pilot. So then we implemented the pilot program in March of 2014. We kicked it off as like a townwide meeting. We gave out the kits. Our first selectmen were there. The processor was there. The hauler was there. We explained to the community the pros and cons of the program. It wasn't going to be perfect. We were transparent. We were able to answer questions up front, any fears that they might have. It was a great opportunity, and I suggest that if you were to implement a program like this, to have this type of meeting, that face-to-face time with your community. So then we made it official, April 4th. We were honored to have, at the time, Deputy Commissioner Mackie McCleary join us, and Chris Nelson and other DEP representative, our chief elected officials within our region, and our processor and hauler, and we made it a big deal, and it was great press. As the program moved on, I'm looking at the time going, oh my gosh. As the program moved on, we had weekly reminders to communicate to our residents. We continued to do that. Lessons learned, keeping participants is hard. Getting more participants are even harder. Animals and pests, those are easy to handle, but you're gonna have these problems. Not enough bags was an issue. You need to make sure that you supply, if you're going to supply the materials to your residents, enough in the beginning. Container quality, make sure that you have funding for a good quality container. And contamination was something that we learned that if the voluntary system, it will be clean material. We had very little contamination. It's proven that in other communities throughout the nation, when a program is implemented through municipal program that's forced upon your residents, you're more likely to have contamination, and that's where the education comes hand in hand again. Program results. After a year, and I don't have the most current data, but this was soon after the year, 60 weeks into the program, we collected 50,000 pounds of organic waste. We started with 120 participants. We ended with 140 participants. That's almost 25 tons of material. It was on average 10 pounds a week per resident or per household. We have an average of 75% bins out every week at the curb. And just a good example of if you took that data and you looked at the small community of Bridgewater, 882 residents, if they were diverting their organic waste, that's 4 tons a week, 212 tons in a year. In the HRA communities, we have 81,000 homes. We would nearly divert 20,000 tons of organic waste. Ambitious, but I believe it could still happen. So environmental benefits and what we should be really starting with our community. Properly composted organics are beneficial. They maximize the plant growth. They're effective in preventing soil erosion. Aid in stream and land reclamation, reconstruction of wetlands, help with stormwater management and construction, reduces the need for fertilizers and pesticides, a huge one, and overall soil amendment to improve soil health by increasing the physical, chemical, and biological properties of soil. That's why we should be composting. So we close the loop by giving it away and practicing what we preach. Down the road, we're growing, we're moving the program to Ridgefield and New Fairfield, Connecticut. They will be drop-off programs, not curbside programs. Don't have time to talk about that, but anyone who wants to ask me about that later can. Support, your community should support either a curbside, a drop-off, and backyard composting within your schools as well, K through 12 and college. It will require regulatory and public support to compost and not landfill and incinerate. We need financial support. Education is essential. I just have to keep saying that. And the path to a sustainable society may be long and difficult, but composting organics is clearly the right step in the future direction. Sorry it took long.
We have a few minutes. We have a couple minutes for questions if folks want to come up to the microphone. And if people are composing their thoughts, I will also build on what Jen said in that DEP does currently have a grant program established for municipalities and regions to apply for grants to help them increase recycling. We kind of have 3 sub-bins of grants within that. One is recycling rewards. Towns can apply to us for the good things they've been doing. If you're one of the top towns, you may get a reward. Jen Weymouth on my staff is here, and Jen, we just handed out close to $50,000 in grants for recycling awards. That's a once-a-year application process. The next one will be in the beginning of 2016. We also have 2 rolling enrollment grants. One is for unit-based pricing for towns that want to do that. And we also have one, it's kind of a more general sub-pot of money called Waste Reduction Initiative. That's the pot that organics-related initiatives would fit under. So if a town is interested in maybe getting a little bit of funding and they have a plan for diverting organics, you could apply for a grant through the Waste Reduction Initiative. Ben, all that information's on our website. And Jen Weymouth and I, you can find our contact information online or talk to us today. We at the state are here to assist towns as well as they want to move forward on this. All right. Oh, you have a question?
I would just like to, excuse me. Thank you very much. It was a great presentation. Both of you did a great job. I just have and I apologize for, I just don't know the answer to this. I'm really curious. When you compost food, are you composting meat with vegetables?
Yes. So our list, it's included in the presentation, but we do take meat bones, shellfish as well.
Yeah, sometimes
and
at
for
a
this
home
Western-
composting level, you might not want to do that, but at a commercial level, whether it's outdoor actual composting or a newer anaerobic digestion technology, they generate enough heat where that kind of breaks down quickly and they can handle the meats and bones and greases and things like that.
Thank you.
Another curious question, what about restaurants? Is anybody working with the commercial
Yes.
sector?
So we also have restaurants who we are working with within our community, and in this program, we have our local village store, and they also have a kitchen, and they are participating in this program, along with the church and all of their program and events.
Yeah, one of our objectives on the statewide level is to get more infrastructure built. We have a number of permit applications in-house for anaerobic digesters. Right now, restaurants are not subject to the commercial organics recycling law, but I think if the infrastructure is there are certainly a number of restaurants who would seek out that option as an alternative to just throwing away. I mean, I would imagine restaurants, food waste probably comprises a majority of the waste that they generate, so.
One of the things in West Hartford is our Department of Public Works controls the pickups for, and they do the hauling, they organize the hauling for both the residential community and town and Board of Ed, but commercial is up to the commercial people to find their own hauler too. So if you're implementing a program, it's easier to do it in what you have control over.
Hi, I have suggested this for our town schools, and the main issue is, oh no, we'll get rodents, and the other concern is that the bags will get too heavy. Just wondering if you address those two things.
Yeah, well, I said in my presentation, that's one of the reasons we decided we needed to transport our waste off-site. So we don't do it on-site. There's a little bit of on-site composting
Right,
that
you
happens.
said it's only moving twice a week,
Twice a week.
so
Yep,
storing it is not causing trouble?
No, we picked containers, with sealable lids. We haven't had any rodent issues. Twice a week seems to be fine. It is heavy, so the custodian, the bags, we're using the same clear plastic bags we use for recycling, but they're not full. The custodians are taking them out before they get too heavy. Yeah.
I'll just also address that. In our school, the containers are small. They are transported to a cart on wheels, and that cart is wheeled out to be disposed of, and then on a regular basis, so it's not as heavy. The other part about rodents, it's always a big question. Our food waste is in our garbage now. Our garbage is in a container outside. There are little friends waiting for your garbage. It will be the same thing with organics. So, when people ask that question within your community, remind them that those raccoons want to get in your garbage can too.
Thank you very much. I think this is really excellent work. I just want to say that. But my concern is about the accessibility to it, and I'm thinking on these points. One is how to package this so that other communities can use this, particularly the recycling thing. And not only that, how it can become something that can be added to the general energy effort that task forces do, such that they're getting points for that. So we have to figure out how to get that into the community in that way. The other little thought I had was that I thought the two presentations were sort of had answers for each other in them, in that some of the community-based solutions that you were divining could then be put into some of the more top-down things that you've gotten from Minnesota, such that you have high school kids making the bins, high school kids designing the posters. You get that kind of investment and you won't have the resistance that you've got. So thank you. But anyway, accessibility so that these things can flow back and forth is really key, I think. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again so much, Chris and Catherine and Jen. Great.